Hey, welcome to the Buck Brief. We have Matt Whitaker with us now. First time on the program. He was acting attorney general under President Trump. He was a U.S. attorney under Bush. And I believe he was also a former football player. He's a robust fellow. Good to see you, Matt.
Hey, good to be with you, Buck. Thanks for having me on.
Let's, the sports guy is Clay. He's the other guy. So I'm going to talk to you about the politics and the legal stuff today. Let's start with this. You prosecuted people. I mean, you were a U.S. attorney. You had to deal with federal law. What you see going on in New York City with this Trump business records trial, just what is all this?
So I was there Tuesday with President Trump and saw with my own eyes the judge, the jury, the terribly dilapidated courthouse. And it was sad, but the saddest thing was that it's very obvious to me now what I believed before I went up there, which is this Judge Merchan, is loving the attention and wants to stay in the limelight as long as he can. It's also pretty obvious to me that he does not like Donald Trump and is trying to put his thumb on the scale, unfortunately, of this entire case. Buck, one of the things that on Tuesday happened is they talked about sort of the jury instructions. And I think you need to understand that the legal case they're trying to make would otherwise be a misdemeanor. It's falsification of business records, allegedly, 34 counts, which essentially says that these transactions to pay Michael Cohen were mischaracterized on the books and records of the Trump organization. Now, we can talk about who the victim of that crime is. It's most likely the owner of the company, Donald Trump. And so then you kind of question, what's going on here? But then under New York law, they've elevated it to a felony because it was in to cover up another crime. And that crime is and this is, again, I know I've already lost half your listeners, but this is important. This is how much of a three-card Monty, how much of a card trick this entire case is. They then say that Donald Trump was, that those crimes were committed in furtherance of a conspiracy and the object of the conspiracy was one of two things, and the jury doesn't have to agree on this piece. Either a violation of tax law, federal tax law, or a violation of federal campaign law. And one of the discussions was, it appears that the state for sure was arguing, and I think Judge Merchan is ultimately going to be sympathetic to this. It would be a civil violation of campaign finance laws. Now, the judge wouldn't allow an expert on campaign laws, Buck, to go and talk to the jury about what campaign laws require. But let me just tell you that campaign laws, if a mixed purpose expense or a personal expense, is not a campaign expense. And therefore, we're all been wasting our time, to be honest with you, under federal law. This tax law thing is even more ridiculous. Donald Trump didn't deduct these expenses. In fact, he paid out of his personal account. And second, Michael Cohen's tax records weren't available to the Trump defense team. So you're left with the tax violation being the mere handwritten note of a gross up of these payments. I think it's a complete ridiculous case, but go ahead, Buck.
No. I mean, there's so much to ask about. I mean, one part of this, I just want to make sure I'm clear on, because I've been saying this for a while, and I'm not a lawyer. I just read a lot. You were a lawyer and a U.S. attorney and an acting.
I think I still am a lawyer, actually.
Yeah. Sorry, still are.
I had to check that.
You have not. Yes. Well, if Biden gets a second term, I mean, are they going to go after your license? I can't tell you they're not going to. But
they already did. When I was a U.S. attorney general, they came after my law license. I had to fight that back. And
oh my God, are you serious? I was kidding.
Yeah, no, it's you, this is the thing in the courtroom with that Matthew Colangelo, who's on the prosecution team, who was in Biden's Department of Justice as the number 3 associate attorney general. I realized kind of how hard, not for the first time, but just like how hard they're fighting to take Trump off the field and to take all of us off the field. I mean, that's how much and how they are going for the jugular in all these circumstances.
Is this the most absurd felony criminal prosecution that you've ever seen?
Yes, especially as you have a crime epidemic in New York City. I was with some folks that are sympathetic to Joe Biden, I guess a couple weeks ago now.
Mm-hmm.
and they were trying to convince me that this major city crime problem we're having is just a figment of the Trump imagination, and that's a Republican talking point. I was in New York City. You don't feel safe there, and I mean, you walk down the
Yeah.
streets, and it is just nothing but panhandlers and homeless, and at any moment in time, you could get punched in the back of the head, unexpectedly.
Yeah, as recently, I believe Steve Buscemi
Yeah, Buscemi,
found
yeah.
out. Rick Moranis, actually a friend of mine, we were old tennis buddies randomly back in the day in New York. He got punched in the face on the street, and this is what happens when people have a lot of problems. Some of them are emotionally disturbed, drug abuse issues, and the system just decides, well, we're not going to keep you off the streets. We're not going to force you to get help. We're just going to keep processing you over and over and over until you throw someone in front of a train and you kill somebody, right? I mean, that's basically the way it feels in New York City. And until I moved to Florida about a year and a half ago, I was a lifelong New Yorker. That's certainly what's going on. I want to come back and ask you about some of the federal cases in Trump world, because I know the New York thing, I mean, it's outrageous, obviously, and it's shameful what's going on. I want to ask you about Florida and D.C. cases here in a second. But first up, I am a big Second Amendment guy. There's a lot that I still have to learn. I got the basics at the CIA, and now I'm a civilian who just tries to get as sharp as he can with his firearms. I've got a pretty good collection going, and it's better than it's ever been before, thanks to my weapons from Bear Creek Arsenal. The guns that I have from Bear Creek Arsenal are absolutely phenomenal. Top quality firearms, and you're not going to find better prices for the quality by any gun maker anywhere. All the big names, yeah, you're paying a lot for the name. With Bear Creek Arsenal, you're paying for the durability, the craftsmanship, and the accuracy, and that's it. It's not, this is something that I'm showing off people because, look at this thing that I have. Bear Creek Arsenal is all about getting it done for you with the best firearms, premium calibers, a fraction of what the competition costs. So I was there visiting the folks at Bear Creek Arsenal in the middle of North Carolina recently, and they're gun guys and gals, and they're all about this. They're building a great American firearms brand, and they're doing it the right way. Go to bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use promo code BUCK to get 10% off your first order. That's bearcreekarsenal.com/buck. Use promo code BUCK, and you'll get 10% off your order. I've already got 2 rifles. I got a handgun. I'm going to be getting more because their guns are phenomenal. All right, Matt, so let's dive in here for a second. Is the Florida case even going to trial? We've got Aileen Cannon, the judge there, really deciding that Donald Trump still has rights and that he's entitled to due process, which must be kind of a shock to Trump given what he's dealt with elsewhere.
Yeah.
Do you think it even goes to trial before the election? Where do you see that, the Florida Mar-a-Lago documents case? What's your latest on that?
Well, first, I want to thank you for giving me a Bear Creek Arsenal weapon for being on your show, Buck. I think that's really kind of you.
I got to hook you up, but you got to tell me where you live, my man, because if you're in a blue enclave, I don't know if we got to make sure we send it to your red state residents.
Would work through my friend that's a federal firearms licensed dealer in Des Moines, Iowa. So we wouldn't have to worry about that. But anyway, so Florida, Aileen Cannon is obviously taking this case very seriously, and there's been some concerning filings in her court. I think one of the most interesting filings is she's going to hear evidence on the selective prosecution, and sort of like lay out the case of Joe Biden and Mike Pence and Sandy Berger and all of these other folks that have, committed the same alleged crime that Donald Trump has committed and gone away without any kind of trial or punishment. So I think that's going to be one of the many hearings that she's going to hear. These as classified document cases are complicated.
Mm-hmm.
You have all sorts of SEPA requirements, and the court has to make sure that what the evidence is, what the evidence isn't, what's admissible, what's not. I mean, it just gets very, very in the weeds pretty quickly. I did one of those cases when I was U.S. attorney in Des Moines, and it took a lot of time. And so she's taking her job very seriously. Obviously, the left is apoplectic because they want Donald Trump to go away. They've been trying to take him off the field for a long time, including the Russian collusion hoax that you and I have talked previously on your old radio show about. And so I think in this situation, Aileen Cannon, I think is being very deliberate and not necessarily taking the word of the government exactly for what it is. I think Jack Smith has been a very aggressive prosecutor in many cases in his past, including the John Edwards, not the John Edwards case, I'm sorry, the McDonnell case in Virginia for the former governor.
Bob McDonnell, former
yeah.
governor of Virginia, who, they went after that guy with everything. They were threatening to throw his wife in prison. She wasn't even an elected official.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, these people, once they get eyes on target, and this has been one of my biggest complaints, to be honest with you, about all of these Trump cases, is usually the way you do an investigation is a crime is committed, and you develop the evidence, and the evidence leads you to who. In this case, all of these prosecutors just decided who, and then developed evidence against Donald Trump in order to prosecute him. It's just an outrageous abuse of our legal system.
I mean, I'm assuming that when you were a U.S. attorney, there were times when something came across your desk or something came up, and when you looked at the facts, you probably could have charged somebody with something if you had really wanted to. But if it was a no harm, no foul situation and no ill intent, no criminal mindset, you let it go, right? I mean, isn't that well within the realm of what a prosecutor... The feds let go of the New York stuff with Trump, but New York City district attorneys picked it up? It seems crazy.
Yeah, Southern District of New York had passed on this case. In fact, Cy Vance, who was Alvin Bragg's predecessor, had passed on this case. And so that shows you how weak the case has always been and how it's dependent on, a terrible witness in Michael Cohen, who admitted to stealing $60,000 from Donald Trump as part of this transaction, plus, may have, I think, lied to the jury and made up an additional story about a phone call that didn't happen. But anyway, you're right. As a prosecutor, you have discretion to bring cases. I think, there's two things that you need to do. One is look at the priorities of your office. And in my case, it was the priorities of the Department of Justice and President Bush when I was U.S. Attorney. And the second thing is the needs of your community. And I go back to what I was saying about New York City, as a crime-infested hellhole. No offense to my friends that live in New York, but it's really, I don't enjoy going there anymore. It used to be the greatest city in the world, and it was really extraordinary place for proud to be an American in New York City. But man, it's just tough. I was just there, like I said, on Tuesday. It's a rough town now.
And it could be fixed. It could be fixed.
Yeah,
that's the problem. That's what's so frustrating. There's no reason for it to be this way. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. But my point is the priorities of the community, and that's what Alvin Bragg would rather go after Donald Trump and try to interfere in the 2024 presidential election than address the major crime and violence in his city.
I want to get to the notion of fixing in this case. If you came back, I'm just speaking out loud. If you came back and you were attorney general for a full term, you were acting attorney general for a period under the previous president. So this is not some crazy idea. If you came back and you were attorney general with the mandate from Donald Trump himself to clean out corruption from the DOJ, could you do it and how would you do it? But hold off for 1 second because I'm going to come back to that question. Look, this one's personal for me. There's one guy that I know out there who understands how the markets move before other people do. He just makes the best calls about where things are going. For 25 years, Porter Stansberry, who's a good friend of mine now for a decade, he's been predicting every major economic and financial move in both directions. And he's also a teacher. He teaches people about finance, about the markets, about economics, and how policy intersects with all of this. And he's got a documentary that you need to see. He's worried that there's another financial crisis brewing in America. I'm not going to make it too much of a secret that the $34 trillion of debt that we have is certainly a major part of it. And he thinks that there are dangers ahead. So if you own any stocks, bonds, have cash in the bank, or own a house, or just renting, or whatever, you want to check out this documentary. LastElectionPlot.com is the website. LastElectionPlot.com. The documentary is America's Last Election, so you can imagine what he wants to talk to you about. LastElectionPlot.com, paid for by Porter and Company. All right, Matt, so you're brought back in. The world is moving in the right direction. Trump wins the 2024 election. Matt Whitaker is his attorney general. Trump brings you in and says, Matt, make it amazing, clean it all out, does the thing he does. Probably the best attorney general ever. He tells you to go to it. Is it, and I want you to be honest with me, is it possible? Like if someone told me to go clean out the CIA, I'd be like, I need about a decade. But anyway, is it possible to clean out DOJ? How would you clean up DOJ?
Yeah, well, I usually don't speculate on what my future holds. I would say anybody that comes in as the Attorney General, Buck, is going to have to do a couple things. One is you're going to have to quickly change personnel and use every tool at your disposal. Obviously the political appointees, you would have to make sure that you quickly move them on. But then you would look at anybody that is in a policymaking or other position. Make sure you have people in each role that can execute kind of the agenda. And the agenda is quite simple. The agenda, when Trump came in 2017, he sent 3 executive orders to the Department of Justice. I expect he'll do something similar, and then we can talk about the corruption issue, because I think that's also important. But he said reduce crime in America. He said back the blue, and he said dismantle transnational criminal organizations. All very straightforward, a mission that we embraced while I was there at the Department of Justice, and a mission that has gone away, obviously, in the Biden administration, including the transnational criminal organizations, which would be your cartels on our southern border that are trafficking in humans and drugs and killing our fellow citizens with fentanyl and other drugs. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to set the tone from the top at the Department of Justice that says, we do not do political cases. We do cases that are in the interest of the American people. Full stop. If there are crimes, we will investigate the crimes. And again, you have to do the right thing for the right reason. And what I worry about, Buck, is we see kind of the persecution that's going on, especially of conservatives, and a dissimilar treatment. For example, compare and contrast the January 6 folks that were prosecuted to the highest and fullest extent of the law, and the folks that took over our college campuses recently, including George Washington University in the District of Columbia. The two could not be a bigger contrast. Could not be. The visuals were similar. You remember the night when the DC Metro Police cleared out the encampment at GW. They were resisting the police. There were injuries in the police. They were fighting back. People were quote unquote arrested. That doesn't mean they're prosecuted. So that you have to bring back equal justice under the law. And the other thing I worry about, Buck, is I just don't think we can get into the banana republic. We'll put your leader in jail and you'll put our leader in jail. That is incredibly dangerous. And I think the statesmen and stateswomen in this country. And I'm not saying we don't fight for what we believe in. And so I don't want anybody that's going to listen to this think that I'm not, and I wouldn't be willing to fight for the the lawful, ethical, and legal agenda that we would be charged with. I'm just saying that I just don't think the tit for tat is going to be a good thing. It's going to end up our republic will end, and we will end up in a very bad state of affairs.
Matt Whitaker, good to have you on, sir. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, Buck. Thank you.